I wanted to address something that is very important and very necessary because it's coming up a lot and it's coming up around a lot of people and in a lot of different ways. And it's a beautiful thing that it's coming out because it needs to. So I'm going to entitle this talk, Am I a Narcissist? And I'm entitling it that because I made a post yesterday that some of you have probably seen where I showed my muscular body off and put it up there and, to promote my book to get everybody's attention because I was definitely trying to get attention. And I have no shame or qualms about that whatsoever for a lot of reasons. But I'm going to get into why those reasons are. But the reason I'm doing this video is because a few people were very, very triggered by it, including one woman who, accused me of being a narcissist. And I think it's great. It's wonderful that people are starting to talk about these things and bring them out into the open because they need to be addressed, because the real issue here is toxic masculinity. And this is something that most men are guilty of, even if they don't mean to be, even if they have pure intentions, even if they want the best for the world, they are still participating in a level of unconscious and even conscious toxic masculinity. So to answer the question, am I a narcissist? What do you think? What do you guys think? The ones who know me. Here's what I think. I think I used to be. I think I used to, not a narcissistic personality disorder, that's very different, but I definitely had narcissistic qualities. Why? Why did I? Well, when you look at society and you look at our world, I think it's very clear that most people do, because the way we are taught to live, the type of conditioning that we are subjected to throughout most of our lives is such that we are taught that it is all about us. It's about me. Living in this world is about dog eat dog. It's about survival. It's about competition. It's about being bigger, better, stronger, more loud, more vocal, more whatever than the other if you're going to succeed. And so we all are conditioned by this. It is impressed so deeply into our nascent and forming selves that most of us don't even recognize that it's happening. We come to accept it as self-evident, as normal. And sadly, it is normal for most people. And that is the way the world is. But deep down, we know that it's not normal. And if I'm tearing up, which I will, it's a really good thing. I've been tearing up a lot lately in talks because there's massive collective wounding. There's massive collective feelings that haven't been felt for countless generations. And the empaths, those who have moved beyond the belief that they are a person having a human experience and are getting beyond all that and tapping into the actual essence of what they are beginning to feel the karmic debt that has accumulated as a result of a species that has lived in disharmony with their own natural law and with universal natural law for longer than anybody knows. And we know that it's time for that to come to an end, and it's time for that to heal. So, yes, I was narcissistic at times, certainly, for sure. I was in a relationship with a woman who really loved me. It wasn't healthy. There was a lot of things in it that weren't good. And, I didn't treat her great. I was definitely narcissistic. I was about me and just focused on what I wanted, but not in a open, loving, honest way. It was more of a selfish way. And so when we're in this conditioned state of narcissism, which is essentially a state of survival where we are living according to the hormones of stress. Because when we are living according to the conditioning of the world that is teaching us money is the number one thing to worship in this world, then it turns the stress response on. We're always in a state of survival. We're in a state of fight or flight. And that is creating a lot of stress hormones to flood through our body. And it is causing us, with our infinite capacity to perceive reality way beyond space and time, much less all that's happening in this dimension, which you look up in space, it's infinity, right? We can perceive even way beyond that. But when we're in a state of fight or flight, our focus narrows in so much to us, a tunnel vision, to me, to who I think I am, to what I think my problems are. And I'm so focused on what I think I need to do to survive based upon this addiction to stress hormones that is pulsing through my body that I'm not able to see anything beyond that. And neither is anybody else. And so that is how most of us are living. It's how we have lived. And that is a massive addiction that causes us to become selfish. Okay. And so all of our wants and needs and the things that we're trying to achieve and do in this world are all based upon selfishness that is a result of stress hormone generated selfishness. Now, the other side of that, obviously, is selflessness. Okay. And that is something that is achieved when we're not stressed out, when we are able to relax, when we realize that we're not just always focused in our mind, looping thoughts and feelings over and over and over, when we can calm down, when we can relax, when we can get into the rest of our body, into our heart especially, and we can start feeling how powerful we really actually are outside of the addiction to the conditions of our past. And when we do that, suddenly everything changes. Suddenly we're not living for ourselves in the way that we were before. We are living in a connected way, in a more loving way, in a more empathic way, in a way that recognizes it is way more than its narcissistic, stressed out, survival-oriented self. And so I have had some massive wake-up calls, massive near-death, in fact, brought right to death wake-up calls, to the degree that there was, as I wrote in the post yesterday, that I did not think there was any coming back from because there was no me even there to think it. And what I mean by that is every bit of the person I believed myself to be previous to that experience had demolecularized into subatomic particles of energy. Okay, this is incomprehensible from our normal human perspective. And left my body and started to go through an initiatory process where it becomes immersed into the source of what it actually comes from. And in doing that, things get real, really fucking real. Like, yeah, all the pain and suffering, COVID, all the terrible things that are happening in the world, yeah, they suck. They're awful. It's terrible. The way people treat each other, I'm not denying any of that. It's terrible. It's awful. The pedophile rings, all of it. But when you start to feel what you really are and what you have not been living in accordance with as a result of not knowing what you are, that's when things start to get really real. And when that happens, you wake up if you're not already dead and gone. And so this has happened to me countless times, but the time that it happened to me the most intense, I didn't think there was any coming back from it. because there was no me to even think that. The soul that was this person before left, and it became involved in a process. You could call it a purgatory, you could call it whatever you want, but it began to go through something where it was being processed. It's almost like a cosmic court where it is being tried, you could say. Everything that I had ever experienced in the course of my life, including countless lives that apparently I was involved with before this life, or that I was somehow connected to in other lives, were also a part of it. And I was aware of all of these life cycles, boom, in a just like that, just the blink of an eye, birth to death, entire life cycles, just in a flash, millions of them in reverse sequential order, and aware of it all at once, and realizing that the sum total accumulation of everything that had happened in all those lives was somehow connected to this soul that was witnessing all of this, and that I had to take responsibility for that. And you can imagine what it feels like, or what it might feel like, when you're in that position and you're feeling this and you're aware of it and you just can't even believe it. And you know what? God, the universe, whatever you want to call that creative spark of energy that is causing our hearts to beat and allowing us to live, it's not judging us. It's not doing anything like that. It just shows us what we're doing, and we judge ourselves. And when all that happened to me, and I saw what I did and what I was connected to, whether I did it or not, or whether I knew that it was within the realms of my own ability to take responsibility for it. And the karmic weight of it is so heavy that as a soul, as this energy form, you want to run and hide, because it is the scariest thing you could never begin to imagine. But to do that is to actually face what we could call hell. And that's all I'm going to say about that part of it. But in that place, I decided to do something else. And it's not that I decided to, it was just that every bit of everything in me that was witnessing all the evidence laid out before me, and how the eyes of the universe, a trillion eyes, are all looking at me like, hey, here it is. Like, here's the evidence. You did it. Like, you see it. It's all you. You did it. Like, what? What? Like, you did it. Like, So it's like, you know what you did from that level. You know what you're a part of. You know, there's no escaping it. This universe is a perfect accounting system. It has it dialed right in, and we are just a part of it. In fact, we are it. But witnessing all this, experiencing it, feeling how big it actually is, and feeling how scared I was to face it, was so overwhelming, and it was so just no way out, that it literally is going through an initiatory fire that burned so hot, and it just kept burning and burning and burning, and it burned out everything in me that resisted it. Everything. And all that was left in me was the part of me that was able to love it, that was able to forgive the unconscious parts of myself and all these lifetimes that it was associated with, whether they were past lives or future lives or other lives and other dimensions, and none of that matters. But the part of me that witnessed all that was, and could finally deal with it, was able to deal with it because I was able to love all of that, because what it is that is actually allowing us to live endows us, and it blesses us with the ability to love at a capacity that we could never even begin to imagine in our wildest imagination. The greatest love affair between two people that we've ever heard of on this earth is nothing compared to the love affair that we as individuals have the ability to experience at the level of soul. And so when I had learned that and somehow miraculously returned to this body and came back, I was a different person. I was a very different person. And I knew that the toxic parts of my masculinity, the toxic parts of my humanity, because it's not just about toxic masculinity, it's about toxic humanity. It's about all things toxic. And all it really is, it isn't even about toxic either. It's just, is it focused on the source of existence, or is it focused away from it? Are humans focused on the creation, or are they focused on the creator or the source? Because if we're focused on the external appearance of the way things appear to be, then we're going to go further into isolation, into duality, into separation. We're going to go further away from the source of what is allowing all of this to happen in the first place. But when we are focused on the source, which is in us, it's surrounding us, it's animating us, it is certainly really powerfully found within our heart. When we choose to focus on that and make a habit out of predominantly perceiving ourselves in this world from that place, then that is the lens through which we begin to perceive the creative world around us. And then suddenly we don't judge anymore. We recognize that all people, even the worst people on the planet, right? The ones that we think are the most evil and the worst, they are just a part of an evolutionary karmic process that is so far beyond human comprehension that we cannot even begin to imagine it in our normal state of being. But from this augmented, expanded soul perspective, we are able to perceive it to a certain degree. And so, taking all of that and coming back into this idea of, am I a narcissist? You know, and what is a narcissist? And what is toxic masculinity? It's what I just said. It's people not living in accordance with their source. It's people not living their lives where they are loving their life, where they're focused on their heartbeat, where they're feeling so grateful for every breath they take, where they look at the world around them through the lens of this beautiful energy that is bubbling up through them. And they see others, even the worst people, as just children who've been traumatized and hurt, and they don't know a better way. And they're just doing the best they can, even if we judge it as being terrible, because they don't know any other way. And so the only other way that is ever going to be an antidote to that is for individuals to wake up to this part of themselves, to habituate this part of themselves, make a habit out of it, to become this divine aspect of themselves to the best of their ability until it becomes a predominant state of being, or a default state of being, or second nature. And then it'll eventually become first nature. And when that happens, you are living as a more fully integrated being. And what I mean by that is you are a human being that is living with the higher virtues of your soul integrated self, but you're still a human being. You're still living and being human, and doing things that humans do, but you're doing it at a greater capacity than you may have ever realized that you had the possibility to do before that. So, me personally, I've been through this process, and as a result of going through it, hold on, let me drink some water here. As a result of going through this process, and with all its intensity, I've learned how, and it hasn't been easy to learn this, but it does get easier and it happens more and more. But I've learned how to be less serious about it and to be more lighthearted and to be more optimistic and more joking and more playful and more fun and kind of actually it's exactly like embodying the virtues of a young child with a state of awe and innocence and seeing the world as a beautiful place to live and finding a way to interact with others where even if they don't get that and they don't understand it, you're not going to be triggered by their unconsciousness, you could call it, or their unawareness to the degree that it's going to take you out of it. You're just going to witness it. You're going to realize it is what it is, that there is no hierarchy. Just because you know this and are aware of it and they don't doesn't mean that you're more evolved than them. None of that makes any difference. What matters is, are you taking steps on a day-to-day basis to live in accordance with your source that is gifting you the opportunity to be human? That's really all that matters. So, realizing that this is what was happening to me in my life and that all of the brutal, hardcore experiences that I went through were actually just this energy trying to get my attention and trying to get me to pay attention to these deeper, beautiful aspects of my being that I wasn't paying attention to because I was so narcissistic and I was so focused on the self. And remember, the self is that narrow state of focus where we're only focusing on that little bit of reality because our stress hormones are just so dictating the way we perceive reality. The hardcore circumstances of life that were happening to me were just this beautiful source energy putting me through these fires of initiation to wake me up, to get my attention, to get me to remember what I actually am and what I'm here to do. And it took a lot. It took a lot. Like, it was a lot of initiations, a lot of wake-up calls, a lot of getting right, having the fire put right under my ass and burning the ever-living shit out of it for me to finally get it and be like, okay, I get it. I surrender. I love you. I'm so grateful. But that's it. Like, thank you so much. I'm so grateful that you are the one that is allowing me to be what I am. And now that I know that you are the one that is allowing all this to happen, I realize that the me that existed before all of this never actually really was. And that what I actually am is you. I am this divine source expressing itself through this temporary human form. And in that recognition, there is no separation. There is only unity. There is only connection. And so that's the reality of what's actually going on. And when we've gotten to the place in our life where we've made that our default mode, our predominant state of being, then it's just natural that we're going to want to hold space for women, for animals, for children, for those who are defenseless, for those who don't have a voice, for men who are afraid to feel their feelings, for anybody or anything that needs space to be held for them because they are disconnected from this space within them. We become that. And that is our job in this world. Okay? It's not, I work at UPS, or, I sell water, or I sell nuts, or I'm creating speaking courses that I'm selling. Yeah, we're doing all that stuff. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's what we're doing right now because that's the way the world is. But this is our number one job. And when we do this, we bring that space, that energy into the businesses that we're doing, into the relationships that we have, into the connections that we're forming. And also with that comes new possibilities that we previously were unaware of, that have never existed before, that we are giving birth to, that can create new realities in the here and now that are so beautiful. And they're so needed because it's this energy that is going to put an end to these terrible pedophile rings and these awful things that are happening in the world right now. Because the reality is they're not actually happening. And that might be so triggering to you. You might be like, who the fuck are you to say? Okay. Let me just go into that, why it's not happening. I know we kind of went down a few rabbit holes here, but let's just do this. This is usually how these things go. How are these things not happening? As I said before, when every single bit of the person you believe yourself to be demolecularizes into subatomic particles of energy that have no name, that have no definition that any language can describe that we know of, and you start becoming this source of energy that you actually are, and you leave all this behind, and suddenly reality is not what you thought it was. Reality is this unity consciousness. It is this one conscious being, this one conscious entity that is super consciousness to a degree that super consciousness could never ever describe. It is the best feeling you have ever felt times infinity, and that doesn't even come close to describing the nature of what this state actually is and what we actually are. And when we are that, and we are attuned with that and in alignment with that, this 3D reality, this world, and everything that we think is happening here doesn't exist. It's just not there. But when we come out of that space and we come back into this, which there's lots of reasons why that might happen, and we can talk about that another time. I'm not going to go into that right now because that's a whole other rabbit hole. But when we come out of that space and we come into this space, then suddenly these things that were just illusion from the perspective of soul, of superconsciousness, suddenly the illusion becomes reality. And these things are real. And they're hard and they hurt. And the human parts of us that know about it suffer as a result of knowing about it. And so our inclination is to turn away from it and hide because we don't want to face it. And I know what that's like because I've done that. I've turned away because it's so overwhelming, right? There's so many bad things happening in the world that it's so overwhelming that we just don't know what to fucking do about it, right? We don't know. But we do. We do know what to do about it. And when we've made this default state of awareness our primary state of being, which, by the way, doesn't require us dying and becoming soul in order for this process to happen. All it actually really takes is us calming down, getting into a state of heart-brain coherence, and training our body and mind to make that our normal state of being. When we do that and we make a habit out of doing that, then these higher revelatory frequencies that I'm speaking of become self-evident truths that were always there, but that we were not able to see because we were so caught up in the density, the appearance of this material world, right? The dense material, whatever, you know what I'm saying. And so when we're in that coherent space, we are supported by higher, more complete, coherent energies. We're taking the higher road, right? That's what it is. We're taking the higher road, and we're walking the high road, and we get good at it. We get really good at it, like really good. We have the ability to become masters of it. Okay, and I'm not a master, but I have made the commitment that I am not stopping until mastery is achieved, because it's that important, and the world needs that kind of commitment. But I have taken this far enough to know and to experience and see and witness and real-time results and see the magic that happens in this dense material 3D world as a result of me knowing this isn't what I actually am, and that this is only a really small part of what I actually am, and that what I am is this beautiful, incomprehensible, magnificent, radiant, miraculous, orgasmic, creative life force energy that is animating my being and offering me this human experience, so that I can learn to be more like it, so I can emulate it, so that I can be a channel for it to express itself through me and into this world, so we can sanctify this world. So that's what we do. We get into these super loving, super coherent heart spaces, and we sustain them, and we make a habit out of sustaining them, and we do it every day, and eventually we get to a point where we're doing it most all times of all day. That's when you know you're getting really good at it. It just becomes that easy, it becomes that natural. And when challenges and things come up, you get knocked off your feet, but then it's only a matter of a little while, and boom, you're right back in it. Because, as I was saying before, you are supported by these higher coherent energies, because you are coherence. You actually are that. That is your true nature. It's what you are. And when you are your true nature, nature itself is there to hold space for you. It's always been holding space for you. So, toxic masculinity, toxic femininity, all it is just human beings that are disconnected from their source. And I know, like this woman who said, "You're a narcissist." We had a little bit of a conversation. We went back and forth and talked and I tried to reason with her a little bit, and I was a little bit triggered, because like, how could you say that? Like, don't you see the things that I say and I put out? And but again, like, I want to reiterate here, like, I'm not perfect. None of us are perfect. But maybe the difference between me and others is that I've made up my mind. I've made the decision that I am going to stop at nothing until this system, this process, system's not the right word, until this entire spiraling process has more fully grounded itself into this world through my human perception. And I've got a lot of hours in, got a lot of practice, a lot of practice doing this. So that's the difference between me and other people. Other than that, there's no difference. We're all exactly the same. And that's why I love everybody. I love all of us. I want all of us to know what we actually are. I want the most evil person on this planet to know this part of themselves, because I know that when they do, they're going to change. And I know that when enough of us start to really know this part of ourselves, together we are going to change the world through morphogenic fields, through the 100th monkey effect, where one of us wakes up to it, other of us wake up to it, suddenly others just start waking up to it, because it just starts happening, because there's a unified field of conscious energy that is connected to all things great and small, and it is what is really aware. It's what's really going on, and it allows us to be connected to everything. And this is how we wake up. We wake up to this part of ourself, and it awakens itself within us. So back to earth here for a second. So this woman and I, we're kind of, she's like, I don't know, I just don't, like, she just kind of didn't have a good feeling about me. She felt like, oh, I'm putting out toxic masculinity by showing half naked pictures of myself, which, by the way, I'm half naked right now, just to let you guys know. Thought I'd be a little funny here telling you that. But I'm not ashamed. And if I had it my way, I would actually wear no clothes at all. If we were meant to be naked, we would have been born that way, right? But I'm not ashamed, and I'm not embarrassed for a lot of reasons. A lot of the same reasons why I've chosen not to be a toxic masculine. So I've chosen not to be a toxic masculine because when you love life and you know that's what you're really here to do, and you know that life loves you, then you want to love others at that same capacity. And so you don't, like, the way I look at women, I haven't had sex with anybody in a long time. It's been, I don't remember when, a long time. And like maybe 6 or 8 months ago, I felt like, you know what? I got to a point where I made some really serious vows to the universe. And I said, I am done having sex. Like, no more sex for me. I am only interested in divine initiation, divine union. I only want to make love to somebody if they are resonating at a similar or like frequency to where I am at, because I have no more interest in coming out of this space that is really like being in a constant state of making love. I just have no interest in doing that. And so it's been amazing because I've been around a lot of beautiful women that when I used to be toxic, you could say, or when I used to be selfish or narcissistic, whatever, I would have been thinking like, oh, I'd like to have sex with this person, or make love to them. I was never like a dog. Yeah, I've gotten around. I've had a few sexual encounters, but I've been with less than 10 people in my entire life. Let's be completely real here, okay? This is the other thing. Like, I'm here to break down social barriers, and a lot of that is being fucking honest. Like, being laying it all out, like saying it as it is, and not giving a fuck what anybody thinks. Because it's by breaking down social stigmas and social barriers that we are offered the ability to heal. Okay? By being real, we heal. So I had when I started loving myself in this way, I started loving others in this way. And something really interesting started happening. Like, every time I would come around a beautiful woman, I have a lot of women who would reach out to me because I have big muscles, and they'd reach out like, oh, you're so hot, and and when I get together with them, they want sex, right? Or they think they do. But after a few minutes, after a little while, they realize that that's not actually what they want at all, and that that's not what they're going to get. And all the parts of me that like used to get turned on don't get turned on at all. And instead, this other part of me that I've been telling you about comes out even stronger. And it becomes what is going on. And it causes these people to feel that part of themselves. And so a type of purging or a type of healing begins to happen where they feel who they are and what they are. And they start being able to look at themselves honestly and let go of the parts of themselves that are holding them back and that are causing them to suffer. And they end up loving me more than they ever did before because they know that this is what it's really about. And this has been happening to me over and over again. And I don't care if I don't ever make physically make love to anybody ever again. Because the only way that I'm interested in doing that, actually physically having sex with somebody, is for us both to recognize each other from this place and to be able to connect energetically from this place. Because sex is a very, very serious, sacred topic. And I'm not going to talk about that now either, because that's a whole other rabbit hole that we'll get into another time. I'm going to bring this back down to here, what I was talking about, and then I'm going to end this. But the reason why I'm not afraid to post pictures of my muscles and my body is because, one, I'm trying to get my message out there. And human beings are visual creatures. Believe me, I've been speaking truth for a long time. Most people don't want to hear that. But when they see big muscles or suddenly they want to listen. And for a long time, I fucking hated that. I'm like, really? Like, this is how fake? And then I'm like judging myself. I'm like, oh, aren't I being fake by being like this? And so I struggled with that for a long time. But then I realized, I'm like, you know what? No, I'm not being fake by doing this. In fact, I am doing exactly what I have the right to do because I'm doing it from this pure place, from this place that is authentic, that is real, that is connected in coherence with reality. And from this place that guides me, I can do whatever I want. And it will support that because none of this is as it seems. We are coming to a point in time when we are about to experience massive healing. There might be some massive death and suffering first that happens. But let's see, if enough of us wake up quick enough and sustain this, we can reverse that. So heed this call, listen to it, pay attention to it, share this, get people aware of this, be aware of this yourself and start emulating the divine and live like this here and now and watch the world around you change. But from a more human perspective, like part of the reason why I don't care about what people think of me or why I get up on stage and sing and speak and say whatever the F I want whenever I want, and I don't care what anybody thinks, is because I used to be the exact opposite of that. I used to be really shy. I used to be really reserved. I would have never thought I would be up on stages speaking to people or singing to people like that. Like, yeah, right. But, as a result of being arrested, indicted, sentenced, having my entire name and life story be blown up in the public media for the whole world to see, it's like public humiliation in its most extreme form, right? Like, you just, like, when something like that happens, you're just like, oh my God, like, I can't believe this is actually happening, like, in its most extreme form. And it's so intense and it's so extreme, and then all of a sudden it's not. I'm like, wow, that actually wasn't nearly as extreme or intense or as bad as I thought. Yes, my family and the people that I love dearly suffered as a result of that stuff, but I was like, wow, like, that wasn't that bad at all. So I kept thinking, I'm like, you know what? It empowered me. It empowered me greatly. And throughout the course of my life, I've continued to self-empower more and more and watch the results of what happens when an individual chooses to live in alignment with divine will, with their higher self, and integrate that higher self into their human self and live in an integrated, integral way, in an elevated state of being, and then fearlessly expressing that into the world. And to truly be what we are here now. Yes, I'm a man, I'm in a man's body, but my soul, this energy that I am, has no gender, it has no polarity. It is unity. But as it expresses itself through these human faculties, I let it happen in its full expression as it wants to, which means that as a man, I don't hide my emotions. I open up. I cry publicly. I love with everything I've got. I will say anything to anybody at any time if I feel they're out of integrity. And I'm getting ready to do this at the most massive scale imaginable with so many others who are also doing the same thing. And our job is to get as many of you who are listening to this message and messages like this in alignment with this part of yourself, so that whatever your gift is, it may not be speaking, it might be something totally different, but whatever it is, by you being in alignment and in tune with that part of yourself, you will be able to express this unique aspect that only you can do with this higher frequency of your divine purpose. And you will be able to do it in a way that will encourage unimaginable healing in this world. So, men, if you're treating women like like you're being like a dog, or you're abusing women, or you're doing stuff like that, wake the fuck up. Grow the fuck up. Because you know what? You have a soul. And you are going to face yourself. And guess what? God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, energy that can't be named, isn't going to judge you. You're going to judge yourself. And when you get to that place and you realize that you're the one that is going to judge yourself, and that this energy actually loves you so much that it allows you to do that, you will have wished that you did things differently when you were here, if you're not already dead and gone at that point, which is what happens to most people. They don't get to experience this until they've actually dissociated fully from their physical being. But those of us who have experienced this and somehow managed to have made it back into this form are here to remind those who are still living in these 3D laws and acting out of them to wake up. Okay, so if you're treating the divine women, these beautiful women that give life, that we have all come through, that is the feminine, nurturing nature of this entire planet that we as a species have been so cruelly abusing. It's time for us to really start checking ourselves and holding ourselves in check and start loving ourselves and start appreciating life. And a wonderful way to practice is in the way you treat others. If you can't love somebody, then get out of their way. People are like, oh, like, what about kids? My kid, oh, I love my kid, but they're not. I know, it's challenging, right? If you can't get out of somebody's way, then get into your heart. That's all you can do. Okay? I went to fucking prison. I spent 3 years in prison. I was around people that you cross the street to get away from. And I had to sleep next to these people every day for 3 years. Of course, there's some beautiful people in there. There's some good souls, really good souls. And a lot of awakening happens in prison. But if you are in a situation that you aren't able to love somebody or something unconditionally, and as a result you're treating them abusively or toxically, then stop. Get out of their way and get into your heart. If it's somebody that you already love unconditionally but don't know what to do about it, go into your heart. Ground into your heart. Love yourself. Love this energy that is animating your being. And keep doing that more and more. And I've gotten into this in other episodes, and I'll get into it a lot more. The practices that I do, the things that I do, which is essentially getting into these higher states and then using this body as a technology by activating all the glands that are all through everywhere. There's glands and plexus centers all through our entire being, that when you are in these highly illuminated, awakened states that are actually very easy to get into and very natural, when we free ourselves from the egoic enslavement that prevents us from being in it, you can activate these dormant aspects of your own physical being, and your human body becomes an evolutionary technology for your own growth that is profound beyond all profundity. And that's a whole other topic that I'm going to get into in much more in depth in another time. But I know I keep going into these rabbit holes, but you get where I'm coming from. You get the point in all this. It's very, very clear. It's very, very clear. The woman who said that to me earlier and accused me of being a narcissist is triggered because people have treated her terribly. Men have been treating women terribly. Men have been treating the earth terribly. Men have been treating children terribly. Men have been treating animals. They've been treating so much terribly. Also, women have been treating terribly, though it's not as extreme, but it has happened. So let's not act like it's all men. But for the most part, there is an imbalance of abuse that is in the laps of men right now. Okay? Fact. That is right now what's happening. The imbalance that we are currently experiencing in this world stems from men abusing their power, abusing women's power, and not being held accountable for it until they die. Because everybody gets held accountable for all of it when they die. And guess what? That's the whole thing. You think you can get away with being a twisted, evil fuck in this life? You can think that if you want. You think you can get away screwing people over or running sick, fucking twisted pedophile rings? Yeah, Okay, go ahead, do it. Guess what? You're going to have a wake-up call, and it's probably most likely not going to be until you die. But fool yourself not, or fool yourself if you want to, but it's coming. It will come. And this is the whole point of this talk, is that what's coming can be here right now, because it is here right now. And when we get beyond the parts of ourselves that resist it, then we can truly be with it here now and live in accordance with it now. And we can love in accordance with it now. And so the beautiful woman that was triggered by me posting naked pictures of my buffed out body earlier, because I'm trying to get attention and get my name and word out there, because that's currently the way this system is working, which we're going to change that too. She has been abused. So I'm going to say a prayer for her. I'm going to say a prayer for all women, for all feminine, for all men, for all children, for all animals. And then I'm going to end this. May everything that anyone has ever done in the entirety of all known human existence that has not been in accordance with the highest divine will, may that be cleansed. And may it be remunerated with a currency of frequency that is unadulterated in its purity, in its essence, the pure creative source of life, of God, of divinity, of the highest, most incomprehensible essence beyond any word that could ever express it. May that be the force that everybody and everything feels now, to whatever degree they are capable of, and let it plant the seeds for those who are not able to receive it in its more full expression, so that it allows them to start being able to build up the energetic wiring and frequency that happens all these glands and plexus centers of the body, that allows their physical being to be able to hold higher and higher amplitudes of their true divine self, so that we can all heal and give birth to a new earth. Thank you. I love you all so much. Please share this, comment on it below. Keep perpetuating part of the matrix system that needs to be perpetuated until we can move beyond it by sharing this video and all that. I love you guys. Thank you.